recording. So September 21st, Monday. And they add some twist to this. So you want to follow, you want to add, you want to highlight, right? I really believe in highlighting things to make sure you don't miss them, okay? So you're at a store in Saskatchewan. The store sells a case of 12 bottles at $8.50, and they're individual bottles of the same brand for $1.55 each. Approximately, how much does each bottle of water in the case of 12 cost, right? Each bottle, that is unit price. Okay, so we're going to find the unit price and recall cost divided by quantity. So if you've done this already, you're just now following, right? There's not much work here for you. So that's 71 cents per bottle. That's the 12 pack, right? I missed that step. I should have. Let me just add that here, right? What we did was take the 850 and divide it by 12 to get 71 cents per bottle. Okay, that's what we did there. So I apologize for squeezing that in there. How much would a consumer save by buying a case rather than 12 individual bottles? Now, there is a number of ways you can do that. What I'm going to do is figure out the cost for 12 individual bottles. So 12 times 155, because that's how much it is per bottle, gets me to 1860 per 12. Okay, so for 12 bottles at 155 each, I'm paying 1860. I will subtract the cost of one box. Okay, and that difference is what I get in savings. Okay, so I found what it is if I were to buy 12 individual bottles. I took away what a box would cost me, right? And that difference is how much I would save if I bought a box instead of 12 individual bottles. So you should be able to show that work there. Maureen purchased enough carpet to cover, and here, this is coming back later when we do area and such, right? Cover a room. Whenever you think of cover, right, I want you to think of area, right? Area, you're covering something. And that room has dimensions of 7 meters by 12 meters. So imagine, right, a rectangular room where one side is 7 and the other one is 12. That's all that matters, okay? So we're kind of expecting area to be the case, okay? The carpet costs $8.15 per square meter. So let's translate that. What is this saying here? $8.15 per square meter. Right? So I want you to write it like this, $8.15 for 1 square meter. That's what they're asking. This is what we call a fact, right? It's actually also a unit price because it's the cost for one. In this case, we're talking square meters, okay? So when it says how much carpet, right? How much did you buy? You're trying to find the area, okay? Find area. Area to be covered. You can't just say I want 10 meters, right? It doesn't work with carpet. If you wanted just a string, right, or cable or something, then you just, yeah, it's just one dimension, right? It's just the length of something. But this is, you're talking about covering a flat space. That is area. So we will find area would be length times width. And obviously we would call this length here, and we would call this dimension width, even though it doesn't really matter. You get the same answer. So we will say 12 times 7, right? We multiply those, and you get 84. And watch this, it's meters and meters, right? So meters times meters is actually meters squared. Area is always in squared units, okay? So there you have that. How much did the carpet cost? So here you want the cost, not here's how much do you need, here's the cost. So we're going to start with a fact here. The fact is that 815 pays for 1 square meter. Okay? Therefore, on the other side of this proportion, right, we're going to try to figure out the cost if we needed to purchase 84 square meters. So notice that the units are the same. If you just had meters here, like if you use 7 or 12 or added them, let's say you added that would still just be meters. You need square meters. Okay? So this would have also given you an indication right here that you needed to find the area. So you cross multiply this way and divide by 1, which is irrelevant, right? So you just multiply those, divide by 1, and you get, if you compute that, you get 684.60 to cover the carpet, or to cover the floor with carpet. Okay. So again, consumer decision. This is all getting into that, think, reason, how much would you pay, right? Like they want you to have a broad understanding of how to calculate the cost of something. Okay, now let's go to page 33. Right, so Tyler is self-employed and he's a sheet metal worker. He purchases 25 sheets of aluminum that measure 4x8. By the way, this 4x8 in the construction industry is a standard sheet of anything. Like even plywood, if you want to go buy plywood, you would buy a rectangular, and it's always 4 feet by 8 feet. So they're just referring to a standard sheet of something. Okay, and the cost would be $4,000. Okay, but the key here is you're buying 25 sheets that measure 4x8, and the cost is $4,000 before taxes and shipping. So they're saying that this does not include taxes and shipping. So that's important there. So how much is one sheet going to cost you? Well, that's where unit price comes in. Okay, cost would be $4,000, and quantity we would be looking at 25 sheets, and you just divide that, and it actually ends up being a nice round number of $160 for every sheet of aluminum. So one 4x8 sheet costs you $160. Okay. And then B might have been somewhat tricky, right? What is the price per square foot? So it's still unit price, but they're not asking you per sheet, they're asking you per square foot. So still, we would still be looking at unit price. And I will go this way. I will say that the cost for one sheet of aluminum is 160, but what would be the quantity? Like what would it's square foot. So square foot, I'm going to highlight that, right? You should also be thinking area, okay? You should, right? So the area of this would be length times width, which is 32 square feet. So one sheet has 32 square feet of coverage, right? So the area is 32 square feet. I'm going to put that down, okay? And that's where I get the quantity from in this case. So it's 32 square feet, okay? So essentially that's where I got that from. And so you go 160 divided by 32, and you get exactly $5 per square foot. Okay, so could you have done this differently? Yeah, but that would have probably been a bit more work. This is really what they were asking you to do in this question. So this is the unit price where they're saying what's the amount per sheet. This is also a unit price question, but they're interested as to the square footage, right? Like how much would you pay for every square foot in this case, right? So it's almost like breaking it down into smaller units, right? So that's how you do that. Okay, number 4. Take a second to read it. I really can't emphasize that enough, that reading, just read the question once, and then maybe if you still don't understand it, read it one more time. And also when you're done doing the math, right, go back and see if you're actually answering, hi, there's Ty, if you're actually answering the question, okay? You have to answer the question completely. Like sometimes you're almost there, but you haven't really answered what they're asking you to do. It's just part of the work. So that's another thing you need to watch out for. Okay, so a painting business buys 3-inch wide paint brushes from a supplier in a case of 6. Cases of 6. Sorry, my bad there. Cases of 6. One case costs $31.29. How much do brushes cost? 2 brushes. There it is. What I need you to know is that they will try, and including myself, they throw in TMI, right? Too much information. Like they could have just said they buy brushes in a case of 6, but they like to throw in the 3-inch brushes. Like this, right? The brushes come in different widths, so they're just like being a bit too specific there to my right. If you want to call it that way, but that's what it is. So anyways, how much do 2 brushes cost? That's odd. We've been doing the price of one all over, right? The unit price, unit price, unit price. All of a sudden, how much do 2 cost? Like why that? Well, it's to make sure you're not just thinking it's always going to be the same. You have to think about what's happening. Okay, so what I will do here is this. This is a fact, right? So, and combined with this. So it's 31.29 for 6 brushes. Okay? It's 31.29 for 6 brushes. Therefore, 2 brushes would be X number of dollars. I'm just going to set it up like this. It's a proportion because they're not asking me for unit price here. But this is true, right? So you multiply here, divide by 6. So it'd be 2 times 31.29 divided by 6, and you get 1043 for 2 brushes. You've answered the question. Now, let's say I'm gonna give you another option. So this is, if this is gonna confuse you, don't just leave it. Or this is another way of solving it. Find the unit price. The unit price for that would be 31.29 divided by 6, which gives you 522 per brush, right? You multiply that by 2 because you want 2 brushes, and that would be 1044 for 2. And you're probably, some of you are saying, but your answer is slightly off. That's fine, okay? It's just that here you round it to 2 and then you multiply it, and here you're not rounding early. You're considering all decimal places, and that's fine. That's why you show me work. I will figure it out from there, okay? So 2 methods of answering the question, okay? Now what? This is a little tricky, right? I would put a star here. Okay, if a customer buys 2 or more cases, so when that happens, right, the supplier reduces the price of the case by 90%. Sorry, by 10%. You only pay 90. Okay, so there's a reduction of 10%. We're going to talk about that today. How much would 3 cases, right? how much for 3 cases, and also how much for each brush. How much would each brush cost you after the discount? And there's various ways of doing that, but how about this? We're going to call this one right here, we're going to call that A, and this is going to be our B question. So we can separate the how much for 3 cases and how much for each brush. We're going to separate that. Okay, so we're going to answer A here. First of all, I'm going to find what 10% of what's our price. It was $31.29. Because we're buying 3 cases, we get the discount. So 10% of $31.29 would be 0.10, right? Of is multiplication 29. And that gives you 313, right? 10% of that, if you rounded it, is 313 off. This is how much you're getting off for every box, per box. Because we found 10% of one box, so every box, therefore, you will have to pay that much less. So 31.29 minus 3.13 is going to be 28.16 per box. I'm going to slow down a little bit. Okay, so write this down. We find 10% by multiplying. We get that it's 313 off for every box. We subtract the discount. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm slowing down. Okay, I'm assuming we're okay. Let's go to page 34. And again, if you really missed something, I'm recording this so you can catch up on your notes later. Okay. All right. Take a second to read that. Which is the better buy? So that's a classic. When you see better buy or best buy or which one is the better deal, you should be thinking unit price. Okay. You should be thinking I would probably have to figure out the unit price for, like, most of these examples are just 2 items compared side by side. You have to be ready to have up to 3, right? Like 3 different stores selling the same item in different quantities, different pricing. So obviously the lowest is the winner. Okay. So I will have my 8-ounce cheese bar here, and I will have the 12-ounce there, and I will make a little chart. Right? So the unit price, obviously it's going to be per ounce because that's what the quantity is, right? So here we would go $4.95. It's always cost and then divided by, so it's 8 ounces here. If you divide those two, you get 0.61875. And I copied everything down because it stops, okay? So that's how much it is per ounce. And you might think it's ridiculous to have that many decimals, but when we're comparing, we do want that to happen, okay? We want to include at least 4 decimals if it keeps going, okay? For the 12-ounce bar, you have a $7.49 price, and you divide that by 12 ounces. And that gives you, that keeps on going actually, this one. If you have time, type it in and you'll see it. It looks like this, right? Keeps going. 6242 is what I'm writing down. 6242 rounded per ounce. Because look, if you had rounded this after 2 decimals, it would have been 62. And if you had rounded the one to the right after 2 decimals, you would have gotten 62 as well. So you would have had to say they're the same, and they're not, right? They're not the same. It's not by a whole lot, the difference, but this is about determining which one it is, not anything else. So this is the best deal. So the smaller cheese bar is the best deal. And I would like to add something here that the question did not ask. Okay, I am asking you that. What would be the savings per ounce? I will take this and subtract that from it. So 0.6242 minus 0.61875. So the difference, okay, folks, you need to know what difference means. Difference is like subtracting. When if you were to subtract, then how much is in between? Okay, so if you do that and you round it at this point, it is 1 cent for every ounce. Because remember, these are all prices per ounces, so it just keeps going. So you're only saving 1 cent per ounce. So is it really a big deal? Probably not. You're not gonna drive all the way to the other store just to get that 1 cent per ounce off. But that's not the point here. The point is, do you know how to find the savings? You know, and it's always largest subtract the smallest, right? Or else you'll have a negative. The value will be the same, but you don't want negatives. Take a moment to write that down. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. If I'm a little too fast, folks, you can either type it or say something. Okay, I'm fine with that. Okay, so Debbie's a cook in a restaurant that is open 6 days a week. I think that's going to be important, right? She's responsible for recording and monitoring the amount of money she spends on food. In the summer, she uses an average of 9 loaves per day. Right? So that right there is actually a fact, right? It's not a unit price because there's no price there, but we know that that can be translated to 9 loaves for every day. Okay, that should be written like that. On average, how many loaves of bread does Debbie use each week? Each week. Okay. Some of you will just know what to do, right? but if you want to use proportions, that'd be great. Okay, loaves. So it's 9 loaves for 1 day. Okay, so how many loaves would you need for a week? We just talked about that a week has 6 days for this business, for this restaurant. So you can't just put down 1 week here. You have to have it in the same units as that one, right? So it's 6 days. You cross multiply like this. So 6 times 9 divided by 1, and that's 54 loaves. That answers the question. Okay. B, if bread costs $1.25 per loaf, that's important, right? That's a fact. To buy from a wholesale distributor, so obviously a restaurant gets it from a wholesale, right? A big bakery, and then you will make a profit out of it by reselling it to your customers, right? At a restaurant. How much money should Debbie budget to purchase it for the month of June, right? So how much money for the month of June will you need? And you can assume that there are 4 weeks in June. So this is how I do it, okay? To keep in line with, so to find the cost, we would really need, we would have to say, okay, 4 weeks, right, times, we need 54 loaves each week. So 54 loaves. So 4 times 54, and that we would have to multiply by $1.25. Yes, there's a lot of multiplication. You would probably do it in steps. But let's just do it this way. 4 times 54, right? 4 weeks, and each week you need 54 loaves. That would mean that you would need 216 loaves of bread, and each one of them is worth $1.25, or cost you that much. So 216 loaves times $1.25, that would get you $270, right? Needs to budget this much. So yes, there are different ways. If you wanted to first find out, how many loaves do I need for June? Okay, well, 4 times 54. Okay, then determine the cost. That's fine. Okay, but essentially, the 4 times 54 gave me the 216 loaves, and this is the cost per loaf, and then you get it that way. All right, last page. Number 7. So give that a read if you haven't done that already. Just a quick read before I go over it. Right. The cost of a 355 milliliter can of juice is $1.25. So they give you the cost and the quantity in a vending machine, and a 1.89 liter costs you $3.89 at a grocery store. How much would you save? So they're telling you that you would save at the grocery store. right? How much would you save per milliliter, okay, if you bought the juice from the grocery store instead of the vending machine? And there's a hint: 1 liter cost 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So I would like to show you, right? You can set it up here. We're going to convert that to milliliters right away. So 1 liter has 1,000 milliliters. That's also a fact, right? And the 1.89 is in liters. So 1.89 liters is how many milliliters? So you basically just multiply these two, and that gives you this many milliliters, okay? So we're going to use this, not the 1.89 liters for this particular example, because we want everything to be in milliliters, okay? So we're going to do vending and store. Okay, we're going to find the unit price first of all, because if we find the unit price, then we have the price per milliliter for each one of these. So it's $1.25 for 355 milliliters, and that ends up being not even 1 cent per milliliter. So this would be a case where stating it per 100 milliliters would be better, but we're not gonna go there right now. So unit price for the grocery store, it costs $3.89 for 1890 mLs. And if you divide this, you get 0.0021 per milliliter. So you can tell that the store is cheaper, but we need to figure out the savings here. And that's why I already got you to do that earlier, so that you kind of get used to it. So you take the larger amount and you subtract the lesser from it, and you end up going, it's really small. So I just included all of the 4 decimals. So first of all, we would answer, I would answer, just to be clear here, right? You would save, or after this, end savings. Savings per milliliter. So we've calculated it. We did unit price for each to find how much it is per milliliter. Then we subtract it to find out the answer there. And number 8 has another twist to it yet. Yeah. Do that back, guys. Here you go, Kyle. Thank you. Yeah, there's a study sheet and the course outline there too. Okay? Yeah. All right. So let's do 8 together here. Has a bit of a twist to it, right? So Patricia's ordering cartons of detergent for resale, okay, resale in his store. So he's ordering and wants to resell it, right? So he can order a carton of 12 for $34.68 plus delivery. So a carton of 12 has all of this associated with it. There's also a delivery charge for that. Or you can do a carton of 18 for a certain amount plus shipping as well. Which is the better buy, and by how much per unit? Per unit, in this case, we talk probably a bottle, right? So it's a little bit more to it than the rest. So we'll do a 12 pack here, 18 pack there. So we're going to have them side by side. And we're going to start with the unit price because we want the better buy. Remember, I told you better buy unit price. So the unit price here for the 12 pack, watch what I'm going to do. My cost for that particular order, okay, would be $34.68, but you would also have to include the delivery, okay? If you don't include the delivery, you're ignoring that, and it's still part of the cost of that order, right? And that is for 12 bottles, right? So I'm going to just go one line down. If you were to add these two up, you get $40.13 for 12. And when you find the unit price here, it actually ends up being 3.3442 per bottle. Or we can call it unit, why not, right? For every unit, you would be paying this much under the 12 pack, and that would include the shipping. But you have to include that, you can't ignore that. Okay, you got that down? Now for the 18 pack, right? The cost is $51.30 plus the $6.25 in shipping charges, and the quantity here is 18. So that would give you $57.55 if you add these two up. So do that first separately, divided by 18, and that would give you $3 and 4 decimals. I just do 4 decimals per unit. So there's a side-by-side comparison considering the unit price, and they both include shipping, which you would have to pay for either one regardless. So you have to include that in your price per bottle. Okay, so out of these two, it's obvious that this one is cheaper. Not by much, but it's better. So you would have to say this is better. Okay, clearly indicate that that one is better. By how much? Because it says by how much per unit. So that's kind of like this is the A part and this is the B part of the question. Okay. So B would figure out the savings. It's 3.3442 minus 3.1972. We subtract them essentially. And if you round it, you would save this much per bottle. So you did say what this is. It's the savings, and you save. So going with this is better, and you'd save 15 cents per bottle approximately.